couple of weeks ago, we released a video on this channel talking about how the Otsutsuki were probably responsible for the eradication of the Senju, Uchiha, Uzumaki, and maybe even Kaguya clans. The sentiment behind this video is that the Otsutsuki were eliminating all of the clans that could potentially awaken to jutsus that could harm them should they ever come back to invade the Earth. Jutsus like the Uzumaki's adamantite chains, the Uchiha's Sharingan, the Senju's wood release, and the Kaguya clan's Shikatsu Myaku. And the idea behind this video came from the fact that all of the clans that have been eradicated throughout the history of Naruto seem to, in one way or another, tie their roots back to Kaguya. And therefore, if I was an Otsutsuki who was trying to make the world weaker so that taking it over would be easier, eradicating slowly but surely the most powerful clans on Earth that all tie their abilities back to the primordial mother of Kaguya would be step one. It's basically the CIA's plan of destabilizing any country in South America that gets powerful enough to say no to us. And thus now, the only clan that ties its roots back to Kaguya that still exists in the modern-day Boruto timeline is the Hyuga clan, a clan that can serve a giant inherent purpose to the Otsutsuki clan in the form of awakening Tenseigan by taking their eyes and transplanting it into their own skulls. And thus the theory hinged on the fact that the Otsutsuki was slowly but surely chopping away at the power of humans that was gained through the fact that Kaguya's blood ran through all of them, and then the Otsutsuki would make humans believe that either they were the ones that wiped out the clans, like with the Uzumaki, or simply forget about the clans, like with the Senju. And thus slowly but surely humanity got weaker until it reached the current state that it's at right now, probably the weakest it's ever been, as the 5 Kage who rule over the 5 hidden villages are currently the weakest 5 Kage we've ever seen, by a landslide. And this has been cemented by the fact that Gaara, with the help of Shinki and the rest of the new Sand siblings, stood no chance against Matsuri. But what if one person knew about this Otsutsuki plot? What if one person identified that outside factors are trying to eliminate some of the most powerful jutsu from humanity? That somewhere out there in the deep, dark blackness of space was a force that was trying to strip all power from humanity? And what if that person, in the pursuit of making sure that humanity has a fighting chance against the forces of evil that exist in the universe, spent the entirety of their character arc trying to catalog and recreate all of the most powerful jutsus that have ever existed in humanity, so that one day, if these jutsus were ever needed again to battle against forces of evil that were too strong for the newly weakened humanity, that these jutsus and these powers could be reintroduced to level the battlefield between humanity and their alien foes. Well, if there was somebody like that, you would probably regard them as a hero, right? Somebody investing in the greater collective good of humanity by doing the scientific research necessary to battle against the augmentations and reality warping of the Otsutsuki. A person trying to keep humanity as strong as possible for as long as possible. A person who's using the powers that they have to battle against those more powerful than themselves. Somebody like that may exist in the Boruto universe. In fact, I know somebody like this exists in the Boruto universe. But unfortunately, the person I'm currently describing is Orochimaru. Yeah. If you take a step back and think about it, and look at Orochimaru through a different lens, not the lens of a sociopathic, maniacal scientist hell-bent on discovering all of the secrets of the world simply to further their own goals of being the most intelligent, well-learned person in existence, then it seems as though, based off everything that Orochimaru has done, that they're trying to further humanity as a race. See, because for every single clan that's been eliminated, presumably by the Otsutsuki, Orochimaru has brought somebody from those clans into his fold and used those people as a way to make those clans' iconic jutsus come back to life. And in a way that, mind you, is reproducible. And then you consider the fact that Orochimaru, much like Kaguya, is building an army of little Mitskis in test tubes like Kaguya did with the White Zetsu, and has also made an entire army of Shin Uchihas filled with 3 Tomei Sharingans, and it starts to seem like Orochimaru is prepping for something. And that something might be the defense of Earth. Yes, I'm aware this sounds insane, but if Ikimoto pulls this off, I genuinely believe it would be one of, if not the biggest reveal in anime history. And it's as jazzed for a theory as I've been in a long time. So with no further ado, let me share it with you, because today we're talking Orochimaru is the real MC of Naruto. But before we get to diving deep on what Orochimaru's real motivations were for the last 795 chapters, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you're feeling particularly generous and want to hear me talk about anime and manga that aren't Naruto and Boruto, go ahead and follow my other channel, The Weeb Commander. Or if you want to see me try to bring real life challenges to the anime world, go ahead and follow the brand new channel that I created with Stephen He, Chris Barnett, and Danny Mata called Anime IRL. Or if you guys want to hear me talk about anime and manga, go ahead and follow my anime podcast, Otaku's Anonymous, where me and Danny Mata break down everything that happened in anime and manga this week. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Is Orochimaru a good person? Well, I guess it kind of depends on how you look at it. See, Orochimaru, if you do look at them through the lens of they may be trying to preserve some of humanity's strongest jutsus to use in a future war against a superior alien race, may be considered a good person. See, because Orochimaru as a character introduces what has been an interesting philosophical talking point for as long as humanity has existed. In fact, the philosophical argument that Orochimaru presents is basically the core talking point of Fate Zero. Is it okay to sacrifice the few to save the many? And humanity has been split on this philosophical decision for as long as we've been able to identify what things' names are. Because while some say it's never okay to sacrifice anybody and that everybody should work together to make sure the least amount of people are sacrificed as possible, some people identify themselves more as realists and say that sacrificing the few is always the right thing to do for the many because it's a numbers game. It's the trolley problem. That's only if you assume that Orochimaru has been harnessing all of these jutsus from these devastated clans for the furtherment of humanity. If you're just assuming, like the story has implied to us, that Orochimaru is trying to collect all of these jutsus for themselves, so why do I believe there's a possibility that Orochimaru's been doing all of this for the betterment of humanity? Well, because Orochimaru's track record is eerily suspicious. See, to begin, Orochimaru's entire motivation for trying to find all of the jutsus on Earth being the death of Tsunade's little brother has always seemed kind of sus. You're telling me Orochimaru, who has always been kind of evil, was on the path of good until the death of Tsunade's little brother. And it wasn't until watching a child who was one of his genin die that Orochimaru decided, you know what, I need to learn as much as possible to make sure more children don't die, and then proceeded to kill 70 children trying to recreate wood release. Now, well, obviously, this could be commentary on the fact that sometimes the most noble intentions are corrupted in the pursuit of power. However, how Orochimaru started and how he ended don't line up if that is truly his motivation. Tie that into the fact that he seemingly never tried to share his scientific advancements with the world, but it doesn't feel as though Orochimaru was singularly motivated by the fact that one of his genin died. So what if what Orochimaru has been focusing on is a scale much grander than that of Tsunade's little brother? What if in reality the reason that Orochimaru's moral scale seems so incredibly skewed is because for the entirety of Naruto and Boruto they've been planning on saving all of humanity, and therefore the loss of 70 or so kids to recreate a jutsu that might one day be able to battle against the Ten Tails is a sacrifice worth making. And it's a sacrifice that Orochimaru has made time and time again. Orochimaru has seemingly preserved the abilities of the Uzumaki through Karin, whose life force and bite healing ability he was able to transplant onto himself and therefore by extension Kabuto. And while it's never been shown that Orochimaru has found a way to save adamantite chains, Karin uses adamantite chains on full display during the Fourth Great Shinobi World War. And therefore there's a solid possibility that Orochimaru has one way or another found a way to preserve adamantite chains through their relationship with Karin. On top of this, Orochimaru has preserved the Shikatsum Yaku through their connection with Kimimaru. Orochimaru recreated wood release in Yamato by using Hashirama's cells, and while it took 70 or so children to finally get Yamato, who can't use wood release at the same level as Hashirama, who's to say that Orochimaru reintroducing wood release into Yamato doesn't have something to do with the reason that Moegi was able to get wood release naturally. But all of these scenarios pale in comparison to what Orochimaru was able to do with the Sharingan and the Uchiha clan. See, the Uchiha clan, which was eradicated down to just Sasuke in Sarada, is now a couple hundred strong. See, whether it was the big Shin Uchiha or the army of little Shin Uchihas, Orochimaru was able to recreate and duplicate not only the base Sharingan, but an MS. And so, while who's to say if the Shin Uchiha are going to be able to grow up and reproduce, Orochimaru effectively made an army of Sharingan users. And with all four of these clans whose major jutsus were preserved by Orochimaru, they either implemented those jutsus into somebody else or themselves, ensuring that they would be passed down to either others or clones of Orochimaru. Clones like Mitsuki. And while Mitsuki appears to be the only clone of Orochimaru that's out and running around outside of Log, we have dozens of times seen the inside of Orochimaru's lab and seen that there are dozens, if not hundreds of more clones of Orochimaru in the form of, I guess we'll call them Mitskis. And thus Orochimaru, either purposely or non-purposely, I'll leave that up to you, has been for the entirety of Naruto preserving the abilities that make humanity dangerous against the Otsutsuki. Those that I've already mentioned aren't the only ones that Orochimaru has been preserving. See, because while the Reaper Death Seal was something that Orochimaru was was unaware of until Hiruzen used it against them. Immediately having Reaper Death Seal used against him, Orochimaru dove into research on the jutsu, eventually becoming the forefront of knowledge on it, stumbling upon Uzumaki temples and identifying things like the Reaper Death Seal mask that allowed them to summon the Shinigami and cut its belly open. Not to mention, even though Hiruzen was the person who introduced Orochimaru to the concept of the Reaper Death Seal, Orochimaru was the person who reintroduced Hiruzen to Edo Tensei. And thus that right there is Orochimaru mastering a Senju-based technique while also learning about an Uzumaki-based technique. Two of the most prevalent clans that can tie their roots back to Kaguya. But once again, you say, but Orochimaru hasn't used this information to help humanity in any way whatsoever. Right? Well, yes, kind of, but also no. See, because it was Orochimaru who was responsible for bringing the first 4 Hokage back to life in the Fourth Great Shinobi World War. But yes, I will concede from an outsider's perspective, it feels as though Orochimaru is still only pursuing their self-interests. But then again, isn't that exactly what Kishimoto and Ikimoto would want us to think if they were planning a massive shift towards the end of Boruto? And think about it, outside of the fact that Orochimaru has been preserving all jutsus that tie their roots back to Kaguya, there's been suspicions that Orochimaru has either been an Otsutsuki or knew more about the Otsutsukis than anybody else for a long time now. Not only has Orochimaru always been a physically weird-looking person who looks more like the Otsutsuki than he does humans, but also Orochimaru's techniques have always eerily resembled the techniques of the Otsutsuki, like how the curse mark and karma marking work essentially in the exact same way, an implantable technique that kills the majority of the people that it's planted on. Those who survive the implantation process will be able to draw on the power of the person who planted that mark on them, and also serve as a conduit for the resurrection should the person who placed that mark on them ever die. And thus this theory begs the question, why would Orochimaru know so much about the Otsutsuki? To which I can only really respond by saying, well, there's one other person who knows a suspicious amount about the Otsutsuki, and everybody believes that he is a long-lost Otsutsuki. That is a man by the name of Amado. So what if the reason that Orochimaru knows so much about the Otsutsuki is because he and Amado are the Otsutsuki pair who had their insignias destroyed at the Kara hideout? Which I know sounds ridiculous. We saw Orochimaru as a child. Hiruzen adopted him. We know that he was an orphan who lost his parents in a war, and Hiruzen saw him and decided to raise him as his own son. But Otsutsukis can use children as vessels. Kawaki was a child when a karma marking was implanted on him. The same could be said for Code. And this would explain why Orochimaru was always in the pursuit of a perfect vessel. And mind you, the 3 perfect vessels that he identified, Itachi, Sasuke, and Kimimaru, all came from clans that could tie their roots back to Kaguya. This could also explain why Orochimaru was in a constant need to switch bodies. See, much in the same way that it was established that Jigen was not a perfect vessel for Ishiki, and therefore Ishiki couldn't undergo a full-powered transformation with Jigen as a vessel, Orochimaru could be in the exact same circumstance, switching from body to body because every body they swapped into was incompatible. Orochimaru, as possibly a scientist amongst the Otsutsuki, could have found a more reliable but less stable way to switch bodies with their living corpse reincarnation jutsu. And this point is only bolstered by the fact that Orochimaru is currently inhabiting a perfect vessel, a vessel that has effectively made Orochimaru immortal, a white Zetsu body. A white Zetsu body created by the Divine Tree, using Hashirama, a Asura reincarnation, and therefore about as close to an Otsutsuki as you're going to get in the modern day cells. But these 2 points that I've established kind of butt heads against each other. If Orochimaru is an Otsutsuki, why would he try to preserve humanity's strongest jutsus to use in a battle against the Otsutsuki? Well, an Otsutsuki falling out of loyalties with the Otsutsuki clan is not unheard of. It happened with Kaguya. And ironically, it's kind of Kaguya we have to look at to try and conceptualize how this theory might work. See, because there's more things that butt their heads against this theory than just Orochimaru possibly being an Otsutsuki and Orochimaru trying to protect Earth. There's also all the decisions Orochimaru ever made prior to the Fourth Great Shinobi World War. Why would some Otsutsuki who's trying to bottle up all of the most powerful techniques that humanity has to offer sack Konoha? Why would they create the village hidden in the sound and try and take as much power for themselves as possible? Well, because initially Orochimaru wanted all the power of humanity to themselves, much in the same way that Kaguya became a god despot. Kaguya, when she identified that the Otsutsuki were to come to Earth to dispatch justice upon her, began to build an army of white Zetsu that she would rule over as the absolute deity of Earth, something that Orochimaru in this circumstance probably thought was necessary. On top of this, Konoha was the responsible entity for stopping Orochimaru from achieving what was his academic potential, and therefore the eradication of Konoha, the force that was hunting him down, in order for Orochimaru to reach the height of his academic potential and make humanity stronger for the upcoming battle against the Otsutsuki, might have been a many versus the few argument that Orochimaru realized that Konoha was the few in. However, Orochimaru was given an opportunity that Kaguya was never given, and that was the opportunity to observe just how powerful humanity can be. See, because while Kaguya was given the opportunity to see how powerful powerful her sons were, it was while she was being sealed away for a couple of thousand years. Orochimaru was forced to identify how powerful humanity was when Sasuke killed them, but they were brought back only a couple of months later, where they once again got to observe the power of Naruto and Sasuke and see how incredibly awe-inspiring it was. Like when Sasuke and Itachi battled against Kabuto and came out victorious even though they couldn't kill it. And considering the fact that at that time Kabuto was kind of the perfected vision of what Orochimaru was trying to achieve power-wise, Orochimaru was once again forced to reckon with the fact that they were not the greatest force of power on Earth, and that instead that honor was held by two humans, Sasuke and Naruto. And thus Orochimaru, rather notably after their death at the hands of Sasuke, takes a massive step back from the path of evil and begins to aid humanity. But that doesn't mean that Orochimaru's scientific advancements slowed down. If anything, they speed up. And Amado, ironically, is in the exact same position in Boruto, as Amado, who seems to have a ridiculous well of information as it pertains to Otsutsuki technology, is using that very same Otsutsuki technology to battle back against the Otsutsuki. And thus, in actuality, this is why Amado and Orochimaru's tablets were destroyed at the Kara hideout. They're traitors to the Otsutsuki. But then why hasn't Kaguya's been destroyed, you ask? Well, because with Kaguya, revenge has been exacted. So far as the Otsutsuki think, Kaguya got exactly what she was asking for. A lifetime of being imprisoned inside of a moon just to be released and re-imprisoned. And also because narratively we needed to see Kaguya and Ishiki's names together to identify, oh, okay, those are Otsutsuki pairs. But I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Do you believe that there's some truth to what I'm saying here, that possibly Orochimaru, Otsutsuki or not, has been compiling all of the greatest jutsus that humanity has ever had access to reintroduce them later on to humanity when they hit their lowest in strength? Or do you believe the parallels between Amado and Orochimaru are sheerly coincidental? Tell me in the comments below, and while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And for those of you who have made it to the end of this video, 1, thank you. And 2, this page is going to be going through what I identify as kind of a cleanup. Over the last couple of years, I've been making content that's been very similar, and that's been because making content like that is easy and what I'm good at. It's come to my attention that there's been a couple of things that I've been doing over the last couple of years that you guys haven't necessarily agreed with. And so I and my team of editors are going to be reinvigorating how much effort we put into this page, whether it be through doing more retention-grabbing edits or cutting down on the yapping intros and plugs that I do at the beginning of every video. I know you, the people who make it to the end of my videos, are my most adoring fans, and therefore I wanted to let you and you alone know that I'm going to be putting more effort in. So here's the NC Hammer 23 2.0.